Hello and welcome. How does one go from being a low-cost manufacturer to being an active player in the knowledge economy? There are many examples, and we're here to talk about one, the state of Gujarat, with Dr. Lars Eklund, the founder of the Scandinavian Competitiveness Group. Lars, thank you very much for speaking with us. So tell us this story about how one makes this transition from being a low-cost manufacturer to something much more high value added.
I think in the case of Gujarat, because stories from different regions, different countries are different, but the story of Gujarat, it started coming to us in Sweden. A delegation, 10 persons of mostly from the business side, big corporations and small businesses, modern businesses and government, professors even, coming to Stockholm some 2 years ago. And I contacted them. I saw that they were coming, and we had a seminar. And then invited. My company was invited to participate in the Vibrant Gujarat big event earlier this year, and that was the start. And I think it's typical that initiative was from Gujarat.
Okay. Right. And what are the challenges that you see? I mean, Gujarat, for instance, as a state, is very big in manufacturing, in petrochemicals, steel, oil refineries. What could be the way forward?
Well, I think it's a very good potential pilot for the whole Indian economy in terms of if they could advance some steps in clustering. In stepping up in terms of innovation to add knowledge to companies, to clusters, and to do it in a context which they already have, which is to export and to have, to become more and more of a international economy. So what it ended up with, all these encounters and seminars in Ahmedabad, ended up in a proposal that we made, a consortium from Scandinavian countries, proposing actually an action plan for an innovation competition in Gujarat. Right. That could be a pilot for the whole India. And this was of course even more interesting, considering the chief minister and his where he's taking his way now.
Right. Are there other examples that you've seen elsewhere in Asia, Europe, Middle East, and so on?
Well, we're talking now on a level of 60 million inhabitants in a region or in a state. Of course, there are other countries that are advancing in terms of innovation and clustering. This goes along with the development from low cost to a knowledge society, and it doesn't happen from day to day, but it happens over 10 or 20 years, or even longer time. But of course there are other countries. I mean, if you look at Japan, they have this background. If you look at Thailand, they are well on the way. Right. And so on and so on.
So when does it happen, or who makes it happen? The whole point from being, let's say, large manufacturing installations to creating or moving towards a situation where you have clusters of maybe high value added manufacturing or service oriented offerings or products, for that matter.
Yeah, well, obviously it must happen in the head or in the mind of the entrepreneur. It's the entrepreneur and his or her strength of doing something. If I go back to Sweden, which is my country, it was about 150 years ago. We were the poorest country in Europe, poorest country in Europe. And what happened was that they paired. There was this scientist who did an invention, and there was this guy from commercial side, and they joined forces and very quickly built global networks to sell what was the product of this invention. This happened, and this is still the core. This is the 20 companies, global companies. That is the Swedish economy today, and it's the same companies. So I think it's about, for Gujarat as well as for others, it's about to sell on a global basis. And in order to be able to do that, you have to have this very special entrepreneur, and you have to have, you know, dynamic forces in the process.
So yeah. So here's the chicken and egg situation, right? I mean, in when it comes to clusters, as government or as someone who's in charge of planning, look for clusters and then build them, or try and create one literally greenfield?
Well, I have a somewhat different opinion about the role of government. It's normally or generally it's described as very important. But you heard I mentioned it's the entrepreneur and the scientist. I'm not sure that you need government at all, you know.
Okay.
Well, you need government to say God bless you, but that's it, you know. It might be more needed, but I'm not sure in India or developing countries. But I wouldn't say Gujarat is a developing region. It's been outgrowing China the last 10 years in terms of economic growth. So I think it's on a quite high level. I mean, this is what instead, in order to finance these innovation projects or innovation clustering on an international level, is quite simply private investors, and how you do it. And this is my message. This is what I try to convince the guys.
To create the environment that brings entrepreneurs together and different kinds who can sit and fuse ideas, like the scientist and the
and how do you do that?
Yeah.
I tell you, the best experience we have from Scandinavian countries is when we do competition. You say, you ask, where do we have? We did it in 12 years ago in Sweden, the first real triple helix competition, which is, you know, innovation clusters with signed these proposals from each one of them, signed by the entrepreneur concerned, by the scientist concerned, and also the if there was a public regulator of some kind, but I don't think the third one is needed. But if you have this, and you have, we thought we would get 10 offers, 10 proposals in a country of 10 million people. We got 200. And 150 out of those proposals were completely new combinations of people. You know, nowhere in the statistics of the government or anything, but they exist. They're just waiting for the opportunity.
And these were new areas or technologies as well?
Yes. And these, you know, in Sweden, this is very much towards the exploration side. It's, if you look at the projects that you need here, is more on the exploitation. So, or at a balance between, you know, science and...
So what were most of these ideas, though? The 200 ideas that came, what were they in technology, as in like information technology or
food?
Manufacturing? Okay, food.
All thinkable, you know, broad variety. And we said from the beginning, we have 3 winners. So we had a process that I think is very well suitable to use here as well, with, you know, people who have experience from all this, not just from entrepreneurship, not only from the sector, not only from the scientific side. I mean, it's all of them assessing these 200 and boiling them down to 3.
So who was the winner?
The winner was one biotech cluster in Uppsala, and one food cluster in the south of Sweden, and the third one was a robot in former, you know, where the headquarters of ABB, ASEA Brown City in Sweden. But it's and those have gone well. But you know, the interesting thing, so they're well off today, and the financing was from the state.
Right.
And 10 years and very generous. So I mean, it's you know, you can't afford that here, not yet. I don't think you have to have private.
Right.
And but the interesting thing is that at least 50 of the others have passed these three in terms of development and clustering and innovation by their own force, by getting financing from other places,
Right.
and by saying we can do better than those, you know. So competition. And I think if you have that model, if you have it like for instance in Gujarat, or why not in
Other states as well.
yeah. You can say that okay, we have in Gujarat we have 60 million. That's 6 times the Swedish population. We could have we can do 6 times. We could have 200 times 6. So that's 1,200 applications or proposals, and we can have, let's say, 25 something like that winners every year or every second year. And you can say that, hey guys, you Chinese investors or your American investors, we can offer the 25 best clusters projects who's gone through, you know, the selection, which is very solid.
Strenuous, yeah.
Why don't you invest in this? Or if you have investors in India or Russia or whatever, I think it's doable. This is what we're trying to sell to Gujarat.
Right, that's a fascinating idea, and I think keep the private sector firmly involved,
Yeah.
Create competitive environments, build an innovation competition, and let the ideas flow, right?
And that way you get in the right people, because if you get government people in, they can do well, but they really don't know what it is about, you know, when it comes to the nitty-gritty. But if you get the kind of investors who have themselves been through this process and perhaps sold, and they're very rich from their selling, their experience, and they sit in the countryside and say, well, I'd like to do this once again. Then they have a place here, you know.
Right, Dr. Lars Eklund, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.